According to recent studies, over 60% of people say they'd pay extra for an exclusive dining experience. But this isn't going to be one of them. When a group of wealthy guests arrive at a private island for what's supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime dinner, they quickly realize the chef has something much darker on the menu. And within a matter of hours, they're about to become unwilling ingredients in a twisted night of food, punishment, and revenge. At a local harbor, Tyler and his date Margot wait to board a boat headed to a private island for dinner at Hawthorne, an exclusive restaurant run by one of the country's top chefs. Tyler, a devoted foodie, is especially eager to experience the chef's work up close. When the boat arrives, they're surprised by the guest list. Among the passengers are food critic Lillian and her editor Ted, aging actor George with his assistant and girlfriend Felicity, and 3 wealthy tech investors, Dave, Soren, and Bryce. Margot, however, is more focused on another couple, Richard, a businessman she recognizes, and his wife Anne. Margot avoids eye contact, not wanting Richard to notice her. As the boat ride begins, guests are served an elaborate appetizer. Tyler eagerly photographs the dish, impressed by its presentation. Margot, on the other hand, shows little interest. Upon arriving at the island, the maitre d', Elsa, calls Margot by a different name. Tyler explains that his original guest couldn't come, and Margot is his new date. The explanation creates an uncomfortable moment. Before dinner, Elsa leads the guests on a tour of the grounds. She explains that all food is prepared from ingredients sourced on the island. Everything is hunted, gathered, or grown by the staff. All employees live there, including the chef, though his residence is off limits. Inside the restaurant, guests see that the kitchen is open, allowing them to watch the staff at work. One guest, an older woman named Linda, sits alone and doesn't seem to fit in with the others. When Richard notices Margot, he quietly asks Anne to swap seats so he can observe her more closely. Elsa announces that guests may observe the kitchen, but are not allowed to take photos. Tyler steps closer, commenting on the techniques and asking multiple questions. The cooks eventually ask him to stop interfering. Chef Slowik then enters the room. After Elsa whispers something to him, he turns and stares directly at Margot. The meal begins with a complimentary appetizer. Lillian carefully smells and tastes each element, while Felicity focuses on ending her relationship with George. Margot enjoys the dish, but isn't particularly impressed. Tyler, eager to show off his knowledge, lectures her on its significance. For the first official course, Chef Slowik claps his hands, prompting all the kitchen staff to turn in unison. He gives a speech about appreciating food, not just consuming it. When Tyler tries to comment, Slowik cuts him off and scolds him for interrupting. Despite the no photo rule, Tyler continues taking pictures. Next comes the second course. Slowik claps again and explains that while bread is a staple for the common man, his guests are not common, so they won't be served bread. Instead, each plate has small portions of accompanying spreads, but no bread. Tyler praises the dish while Margot finds it insulting. Lillian critiques the emulsion's texture, saying it looks slightly split. In response, a full bowl of the emulsion is delivered to her table as a joke. The tech investors ask for bread, pointing out their connection to Doug Varick, the island's owner. Elsa denies their request and tells them they will receive less than they want, but more than they deserve. Margot refuses to eat the course. When Tyler tries to take her dish, he knocks over a glass. Slowik quickly approaches. Tyler apologizes, but Slowik focuses on Margot's refusal to eat. She explains there's barely any food on the plate. Slowik responds that the portion sizes are intentional, and skipping a dish means she won't feel full later. Margot still doesn't eat, and Slowik walks away, visibly irritated. He pauses at Linda's table to check on her. Margot glances at Richard, which Anne notices. Anne remarks that Margot resembles their deceased daughter. Richard avoids the topic and asks her to move on. With another clap, Slowik introduces the third course, called Memory. He shares a personal story about taco nights from his childhood, revealing that Linda is his mother and that she has struggled with alcohol since he was young. Slowik explains that his father was an alcoholic. One night after Linda confronted him, the man tried to strangle her with a phone cord. To protect her, young Slowik stabbed his father in the thigh with scissors. He now regrets not killing him. The course reflects that night, a smoked chicken thigh served on a phone cord with a pair of scissors stuck into the meat. The tortillas are freshly made and engraved using a laser. The mood shifts when guests notice disturbing personal images printed on their tortillas. Lillian sees photos of restaurants that shut down following her negative reviews. Anne discovers images of her husband's private affairs, including one of Richard with another woman. Richard claims it's a joke. George finds stills from his poorly received movie, Dr. Sunshine. The tech investors find incriminating company documents, including fake invoices. They demand an explanation, but Elsa gives none. When they threaten legal action, she calmly says it won't be necessary. Tyler sees himself photographing the food and becomes anxious, assuming Slowik is targeting him. Margot is offended by her tortilla images and wants to send the dish back. Tyler scolds her, calling her immature. Upset, Margot heads to the bathroom. Elsa tries to stop her from opening a restricted silver door. Inside the bathroom, Margot lights a cigarette near a window and notices a staff member running outside with a pair of angel wings. Slowik appears and questions her again about refusing to eat. He says her actions are affecting him. Margot responds that she simply isn't hungry. Slowik questions Margot's identity. When she claims to be from Nebraska, he doesn't believe her. Meanwhile, the kitchen staff prepares for the fourth course by laying down fabric and decorations on the floor. Slowik introduces Jeremy, a sous chef who created the next dish, the mess. Jeremy graduated from a top culinary school and always wanted to work under Slowik. While Slowik acknowledges Jeremy's talent, he believes Jeremy lacks greatness. He explains that his own life is full of stress, ungrateful customers, and harsh critics. When asked if he still wants that kind of life, Jeremy says no. Slowik kisses Jeremy on both cheeks and steps aside. Jeremy then pulls out a gun. Slowik announces the fourth course, and Jeremy takes his own life in front of the guests. The kitchen staff remains composed, but the guests panic, except for Tyler, who watches with interest. As the body is removed, Slowik instructs everyone to sit and accept that this is part of the evening. The guests debate whether what they saw was real. Richard decides to leave and takes Anne with him, but Elsa blocks their path, saying there is no boat available. When Richard insists, Elsa orders the chefs to restrain him and remove his ring finger. As Richard screams on the ground, Elsa picks up his wedding ring and hands it to Anne. Slowik repeats that everything is part of the menu. Lillian accepts this explanation, but the rest of the guests grow more fearful. Felicity asks George to speak with Slowik, believing they are friends. George admits he lied about knowing him. Elsa escorts Margot to the kitchen. Slowik tells her he knows she's not Margot and wasn't included in the original guest list. He demands to know whose side she's on, the guests or the staff's, but adds it won't matter since everyone will die tonight. Margot returns to the dining room, upset. When Tyler keeps talking about the food, she slaps him. The atmosphere grows more tense. Soren grabs a chair and tries to smash a window, but the glass doesn't break. Elsa calmly returns him to his seat. The next course is a tea served to cleanse the palate. Slowik uses the moment to ask if the guests have any questions. Tyler asks about the tea, but George shifts focus by asking what's actually happening. Slowik explains that the guests are the ingredients in a tasting menu, and they shouldn't be surprised. He singles out Lillian for her role in shutting down restaurants through her harsh reviews and criticizes Ted for enabling her. The kitchen staff brings another ruined emulsion dish to Lillian as a message. Elsa places a kitchen timer in front of Margot, telling her she has 10 minutes. Anne asks for a doctor to help Richard. Slowik responds by pointing out that despite being regulars for 5 years, they can't name a single dish they've eaten. He says he became a prestigious chef only to realize he's been cooking for people who are never satisfied, like his own mother. When Slowik refers to the establishment as his restaurant, Bryce reminds him that the real owner is Doug Varick. Slowik responds by claiming he owns Doug, and it's revealed that Doug is suspended outside, wearing angel wings. Dave offers money to save him, but Slowik refuses. Bryce tries to escape, the staff stops him. Bryce argues that Doug kept the restaurant running during the pandemic, but Slowik complains that Doug constantly interfered with his menu. At Elsa's signal, Doug is lowered into the ocean and drowns. Slowik declares that he is finally free and returns to his office. Margot's timer goes off and she is called in to speak with Slowik. She admits she wasn't meant to be there. Slowik tells her he knows she works in the service industry. When asked about her focus on Richard, Margot confesses she is a sex worker, and Richard had hired her to act like his daughter during their encounter. Both Slowik and Margot agree they once enjoyed their jobs, but were worn down by toxic clients. After the conversation, Slowik leads the guests outside. The next course is introduced by sous chef Catherine, who explains that Slowik repeatedly made advances toward her, which she rejected. Although he didn't fire her, he began ignoring her. This inspired the dish called Man's Folly. Catherine then stabs Slowik in the leg and hugs him, smearing blood on his uniform. Slowik apologizes. The male guests are then told they have 45 seconds to run before the staff begins hunting them. All the men take off except Tyler, who has to be pushed outside by Slowik. Meanwhile, Catherine brings the women inside to eat the sixth course. The women share a table with Catherine, who tells them that the idea for everyone dying was hers. Lillian compliments the dish, which makes Catherine emotional, prompting the other women to give compliments as well to keep her calm. Anne quietly asks Margot if she knows Richard. Margot confirms that she does, and later reveals her real name is Erin and says she's from Massachusetts. Outside, Tyler watches the women through the window, frustrated that he's missing a course. The staff searches for the men and captures all of them easily, whether they ran into the forest or toward the beach. Ted hides in the smokehouse and is rewarded with a Passard egg. The men are brought back to the dining area. George sarcastically apologizes to Felicity for being a failure, which leads her to admit she's been stealing from him. George says he already knew, and Felicity says she knew he did. Slowik announces the meal can't continue until a certain matter is addressed. He confronts Tyler and makes him admit he knew from the beginning that everyone would die. Tyler originally planned to bring a date, but after his girlfriend broke up with him, he hired Margot to accompany him, knowing she would die too. Margot reacts by attacking Tyler, but the staff quickly separates them. Slowik then gives Tyler a chef's jacket and tells him to cook in front of the guests. Tyler reluctantly steps into the kitchen, but the dish he prepares is poorly executed, made worse by Slowik taunting him about his food knowledge. The final result is a failure. Slowik tells Tyler that people like him have ruined the creativity behind his work. He whispers something into Tyler's ear, causing him to remove the jacket and leave the room in tears. Afterwards, Slowik pulls Margot aside and asks for a favor. He tells her that they need a large barrel to prepare dessert, but Elsa failed to bring it to the dining room. Slowik tells Margot to retrieve the barrel, ignoring Elsa's offer to send another staff member. On her way out, Margot sees that Tyler has taken his own life, but she doesn't react. Back in the dining room, George complains about the fairness of the situation. Slowik explains that George is being punished for ruining his rare day off by watching Dr. Sunshine, while Felicity's punishment is for graduating from Brown University without student debt. Margot reaches the smokehouse but grabs a knife instead of the barrel. She heads into Slowik's house, which is a replica of the restaurant with a bed. When she tries to exit through the silver door, Elsa confronts her with a knife. Elsa accuses her of trying to replace her. Margot defends herself using kitchen tools and says she has no intention of staying. Elsa reveals the barrel wasn't forgotten. Slowik never asked for it. They fight, and Margot accidentally kills Elsa while trying to avoid being stabbed. After regaining her composure, she takes Elsa's keys and unlocks the silver door. Inside, she finds a small room filled with photos from Slowik's past, including his time with a family and a job making burgers. She uses a radio in the room to call for help. Meanwhile, back in the restaurant, Bryce receives a birthday cake arranged by his friends. Margot returns, rolling in the barrel, and Slowik speaks about his past, claiming his actions now are pure. He says his hands no longer feel pain as he's beyond being hurt. A boat is seen approaching, and Slowik realizes Margot used the radio. The staff quickly cleans up the scene. Slowik warns that if anyone speaks out, an innocent man will die. Coast Guard Dale enters and asks what's happening. No guest speaks up. He recognizes George and asks for an autograph. George writes, "Help us," on the paper, which Dale pretends not to notice at first. He then pulls out what looks like a gun, raising hope among the guests, only to reveal it's a lighter shaped like a gun. Dale is actually part of Slowik's team and returns to the kitchen. Slowik expresses disappointment in Margot and says she's no better than the others. Margot recalls what she saw in the house and takes a chance. She claps to get Slowik's attention and complains about the food, asking to send it back. She says she's still hungry and wants a proper cheeseburger. This breaks Slowik's composure. He agrees and makes her a traditional cheeseburger with fries for $9.95. The staff watches as Slowik prepares it with care. Margot eats a bite, praises it, but says it's too much and asks to take it to go. Slowik complies. Margot places a $10 bill on the table, takes the bag, and walks out. She hesitates at the door, but Anne silently encourages her to leave. Margot heads to the dock and escapes using the boat Dale arrived in. Back in the restaurant, Slowik says it's time to pay. $1,250 each, with no tips. Each guest receives a goodie bag that includes one of Doug's fingers. After collecting credit cards, Slowik announces the final course, dessert. The cooks begin arranging ingredients on the restaurant floor, treating it like a giant dessert plate. They dress the guests in chocolate hats and marshmallow vests. Slowik tells them they represent everything that ruined his life, and they will now be part of his final dish, an exaggerated take on a s'more, which he calls the most insulting dessert ever made. To complete the dish, he takes a burning coal from the oven with his bare hands and tosses it onto the floor setup, igniting the flammable decorations. Fire spreads rapidly, engulfing the restaurant and everyone inside. Out at sea, Margot stops the boat and eats the rest of her cheeseburger while watching the flames consume the building. She wipes her mouth with the printed menu that came with the gift bag.